Central Park, New York. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees, throwing long shadows across the path where children played and joggers passed with headphones. Suddenly, a scream shattered the peace. A police K9, strong and disciplined only moments before, was now thrashing on the ground, trapped in the suffocating coils of a monstrous anaconda. Its jaws snapped desperately, its whines turning into choking gasps. Two NYPD officers stumbled back in shock, one yanking his pistol from its holster. "I have to end this now," he shouted, the barrel shaking as he aimed at the serpent's massive head. His partner grabbed his arm. "If you fire, you'll hit the dog." The standoff ignited panic in the gathering crowd. Then came the roar of heavy engines. Black trucks stamped with wildlife rapid response units screeched to a halt at the curb, lights spinning red and blue. Four figures jumped out, clad in matching slate-gray jumpsuits with reflective bands across their chests and arms. Their helmets caught the sun, visors pulled down against the glare. At the front strode Nathan Cole, a tall, lean man with dark stubble and eyes sharpened by years of emergencies. His voice cut like a command through the din. "Weapons down! Nobody fires unless I say!" The policeman froze, torn between authority and desperation. The K9 let out another strangled cry, its handler dropping to his knees, begging through tears. The snake's body flexed, thick as a fallen tree trunk, each muscle bunching with terrible purpose. Leaves crackled beneath its movements, the scales slick and glistening like black oil. Nathan's team formed a quick semicircle. Carla Ruiz, compact and razor-focused, already snapping open her capture pole. Marcus Green, broad-chested and carrying heavy cutters across his back. And Emily Ross, the medic, hands clutching a bag of syringes and bandages. They moved with practiced precision, eyes locked on the coils. Nathan raised a palm toward the police, steady but forceful. "We're here to save both. Let us work." His words clashed against the metallic click of the officer's pistol being chambered. The dog's body convulsed, claws scrabbling helplessly at the dirt path, and the handler shouted, "Do something! He can't breathe!" Every heartbeat stretched like an eternity. Nathan's boots sank slightly into the damp earth as he advanced, his movements deliberate, reading the snake's posture like a code. The anaconda lifted its head, tongue tasting the air, eyes glinting cold as obsidian. The crowd gasped, some shielding their children, others holding phones high to record. Sweat beaded under Nathan's collar, but his voice came steady. "Carla, left side. Marcus, behind the head. Emily, stand by." Carla crept forward, pole low, steps silent, her breath tight in her chest. The air was thick with fear and the metallic tang of adrenaline. The dog's whimpers had grown faint, its chest visibly compressing under the relentless pressure. The officers still hovered, one whispering, "He's going to kill them all," finger tense on the trigger. Nathan turned sharply, locking eyes with him, and barked, "Holster it! A bullet in this chaos ends 2 lives." His words rang like iron, the authority of a man who had stood in too many battles between instinct and survival. The anaconda shifted again, rolling its massive weight, and the K9 let out a brittle yelp that nearly broke the handler's resolve. He lunged forward, only for Marcus's arm to stop him cold. "Don't! You'll cost him everything," Marcus growled, voice like gravel. The handler collapsed back, trembling, watching helplessly. Nathan dropped to one knee, scanning the exact rhythm of the snake's contractions. Timing would mean life or death. He drew a breath, grounding himself in the chaos. Then, without warning, the snake's head darted up, mouth gaping wide, a hiss vibrating through the ground like a living storm. The crowd screamed. Phones dropped. The officers raised their weapons instinctively again, and Nathan, steady as steel, thrust his arm forward with a signal that meant only one thing: strike now, or lose them both forever. Nathan's hand stayed raised, a silent command that froze his entire team mid-motion. The massive serpent's head loomed, swaying above them like a pendulum of death. Its jaws parted wider, rows of recurved teeth flashing, saliva stringing in the sunlight. The K9 whimpered in its tightening prison, eyes rolling back, chest nearly still. The handler's scream split the air. "Shadow! Hold on, boy!" His knees sank into the dirt, his fists clenching uselessly. The crowd pressed forward, gasps and muffled cries rippling through like a storm. All around, the hum of the city seemed to vanish. There was only snake, dog, and the pounding hearts of those sworn to protect. Carla Ruiz sprang first, sliding low into the brush with her capture pole extended. She jabbed fast, slipping the padded loop beneath the snake's neck. With one wrench, she yanked back, diverting its head just inches from Nathan's chest. The serpent let out a deafening hiss, its body convulsing with terrifying strength. Leaves erupted into the air, dirt flying as coils contracted tighter around Shadow's ribs. A muffled crack echoed, drawing gasps from the onlookers. The dog's scream turned into a hoarse whine, silenced under the crushing grip. Emily Ross pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes glistening, but stayed poised with her medkit, waiting for her turn to run in. Marcus Green charged next, his bulk a wall of power, cutters strapped across his back. He swung his reinforced pole around the serpent's midsection, planting his boots deep into the soil to anchor against its thrashing. Muscles burned, veins stood out on his neck, but the snake's power was unreal, like trying to restrain a living avalanche. Nathan dove in, gripping the slick, mud-smeared coils with both arms, his gloves squeaking against the scales. "Now, pull!" he barked, voice sharp as a whip. Together they wrenched, veins bulging as the coils began to shift. For the first time, a gasp of breath rattled out of Shadow's chest, shallow but alive. The NYPD officer still had his gun out, fury written in his trembling hands. "You're wasting time, one bullet, and it's over." His partner tried to restrain him, but the officer tore free, eyes wild. Nathan spun, sweat dripping from his brow. "You fire, you kill them both." His words cracked like thunder, stopping the officer in his tracks. The handler staggered forward, voice breaking. "Please, don't shoot, he's all I have." His plea struck the crowd silent. Even the officer's hand faltered, lowering the weapon slightly, though his jaw clenched with frustration. The anaconda writhed harder, tail lashing like a whip. It struck Marcus across the shoulder, nearly toppling him. He grunted, digging his boots in deeper, pole bending dangerously under strain. Carla tightened her loop around the snake's neck, muscles screaming as she fought to keep its snapping jaws away from Nathan. Every second felt stolen against the animal's brute power. Nathan pressed closer, voice dropping low, almost calm, as if speaking to both snake and dog. "We're here. No one dies today." His words were swallowed by the serpent's hiss, but Emily felt them, her heart pounding in sync with his resolve. Suddenly, Shadow's body went limp, his paws dangling, eyes half shut. The handler screamed, voice breaking. Emily lunged forward, dropping to her knees beside the K9, reaching between the coils with trembling hands. "He's still got a pulse, but barely," she cried, her voice cracking. Nathan's jaw clenched, his body surging with adrenaline. "Then we buy him more time," he roared. Sweat poured down his temples as he heaved with all his strength, tendons taut in his arms. The snake's head jerked violently, snapping at the air, its fury unleashed. Marcus slipped, dragged several feet through the dirt by the serpent's thrash, his pole bending dangerously. Carla shouted, her voice sharp, "Nathan, it's going to break free." The crowd screamed again, children crying, officers torn between stepping in or standing down. The air was alive with chaos, but Nathan's focus narrowed to a single truth. This dog had minutes, maybe seconds. His next command would decide everything. "Marcus, shift right. Carla, brace it higher. Emily, be ready to pull Shadow out the moment we loosen." His words came fast, decisive, a lifeline in the maelstrom. The team obeyed without hesitation, sliding into position, muscles locking, tools grinding against scales. The serpent's roar shook the trees, its coils flexing in defiance. The battle between man, beast, and survival reached its breaking point. One slip, one breath too late, and the park would witness tragedy carved into its soil. The serpent's hiss deepened, a sound that seemed to crawl into every rib cage around it. Its muscles rippled like steel cables, coils vibrating as though powered by rage itself. Shadow, the K9, gave a faint twitch, a whisper of life that fueled Nathan's determination. His voice cut through the chaos, harsh and commanding. "Now, everyone lock and pull." Carla planted her knee into the dirt, arms trembling as she lifted the snake's head higher, its jaws snapping within inches of her visor. Marcus shifted right, sweat streaming, the pole digging into his shoulder as he leveraged every ounce of strength. Emily hovered close, one hand stretched toward Shadow's limp body, the other gripping her med bag, eyes darting, waiting for that single chance to drag him free. The snake's tail lashed again, slamming into the ground so hard it sent dust and leaves spraying. The crowd screamed, some stumbling back, others frozen by the raw spectacle. The armed officer surged forward once more, fury igniting in his face. "Enough, I'm ending this!" He raised his pistol. The handler hurled himself in front of him, chest heaving. "No, he's my partner. Don't make me watch him die by your hands." His cry cracked something in the air. Even the crowd fell silent, their eyes glistening. The officer faltered, weapon still up, but for the first time uncertain. Nathan seized that hesitation. "Trust us," he bellowed, veins standing out in his neck. "One more minute, give him that." With a guttural roar, Marcus wrenched his pole sideways. The snake's body shifted just enough, the pressure around Shadow loosening by a fraction. Emily didn't wait. She dove, her arms slipping beneath the K9's heaving chest, fingers scraping scales that tore at her gloves. "I've got him," she cried, voice ragged. Shadow's body was slick with saliva and mud, heavy and limp. The serpent sensed the theft, its head whipping toward her in a blur of black and green. Carla yanked her pole with a cry, dragging the head sideways just as teeth clamped shut where Emily's arm had been seconds before. Gasps echoed across the park, the sound of jaws snapping empty air, rattling every onlooker's bones. Emily collapsed backward, Shadow cradled against her lap. His body twitched, mouth foaming, ribs heaving shallowly. "Pulse is weak, but he's alive," she shouted, desperation flooding her voice. The handler stumbled forward, only to be shoved back by Marcus's free arm. "Not yet. She needs space." The handler broke, sobbing into his hands, his cries raw enough to still even the restless murmurs of the crowd. Nathan spared one glance, his chest tight, then returned his full focus to the serpent, thrashing at his knees. The fight was far from over. The anaconda whipped sideways, throwing its massive weight across Nathan's chest, knocking the breath from his lungs. He staggered, almost dropping his grip, but roared through the pain, digging his boots into the soil. "Hold it," he barked, spittle flying from his lips. Carla's arms quivered under the strain, her pole bending dangerously, knuckles white beneath her gloves. Marcus strained, muscles tearing under the pressure, his teeth clenched so tight, blood trickled from his lip. This was no rescue. It was war, fought in front of hundreds of horrified eyes. Shadow coughed, a wet, rattling sound that broke Emily's heart open. She pressed her ear to his muzzle, tears streaking through the grime on her cheeks. "Stay with me, boy, stay with me," she whispered, her voice trembling. His paw twitched faintly, claws brushing against her arm, a sign that life still clung by a thread. Behind her, the handler's hands shook violently, torn between rushing to his partner and obeying the desperate shouts to stay back. His anguish spilled into the air, a chorus with the dog's fragile gasps. Nathan, choking under the serpent's pressure, forced his head up, eyes blazing. "Marcus, cut the coil, now!" he roared. Marcus swung his heavy cutters from his back, metal glinting in the fading sun. With a grunt, he forced them into the thickest part of the snake's body, the blades biting through flesh and scale. A roar erupted from the serpent, so loud it seemed to shake the trees themselves. The crowd shrieked, phones tumbling from hands, children pressed to parents' chests. The snake writhed, coils slackening just enough to free Nathan's torso. Blood darkened the grass where Marcus's cutters had struck, but Nathan's voice carried above it all, firm and unyielding. "Keep it steady. We're not here to kill it, only to break its hold." His words clashed with the chaos, a promise shouted into madness. Carla's grip slipped, her arms nearly giving out, but she locked her teeth and screamed through the pain, yanking harder. Together they held, the serpent's fury crashing against their human wall of resolve. Emily's cry pierced the moment. "He's breathing deeper." Shadow's chest rose and fell with faint rhythm now, his tongue lolling but his eyes twitching toward the light. Hope surged, thin and fragile, but enough to electrify the team. Nathan, face smeared with dirt and sweat, caught sight of the K9's shallow breaths and shouted with renewed fire, "We're not done. Hold on." The crowd leaned forward, breaths caught in their throats, watching the balance of life hang in impossible tension. The serpent's body convulsed violently, a tidal wave of muscle and rage crashing against human will. Nathan's arms screamed with strain, tendons threatening to snap, yet he refused to let go. Carla's knees sank deeper into the dirt, her body shaking as she wrenched the snake's head away from Emily and Shadow. Marcus locked the cutters back onto the thick coil, grunting as the blades cut deeper into armored scales. The hiss that followed was guttural, ancient, rattling the very air around them. For a moment, time fractured. The sound of children crying, police radios crackling, and a single heartbeat of silence before the serpent thrashed one final time. Its body whipped sideways with hurricane force, sending Nathan crashing to the ground. Pain flared in his ribs, the breath stolen from him, but his eyes never left Shadow. "Don't let go," he barked, voice hoarse yet thunderous. Marcus roared, veins bulging, as he forced the cutters down with a final brutal snap. The coil loosened at last, uncoiling like a monstrous rope falling away. Emily seized the moment, dragging Shadow fully free, mud and blood streaking across her arms as the dog's body landed limp but unbound on the grass. Gasps erupted through the crowd, half in terror, half in hope. Shadow coughed, a guttural wet sound that jolted his handler to his knees. "Buddy, breathe, come on," he cried, tears blurring his vision. Emily pressed her hands to the canine's chest, steady and firm, her voice sharp but pleading. "Inhale, Shadow. Fight it. Come back." The dog's ribs rose in a shallow motion, then again, stronger this time. A weak whine left his throat, fragile but alive. The handler sobbed openly, clutching his own vest, whispering prayers into the hot air. Even hardened officers felt their throats tighten as the fragile rhythm of life returned before their eyes. The anaconda, wounded and furious, coiled back, head swaying in challenge. The armed officer, still clutching his pistol, stepped forward. "It's still a threat. Let me finish it." His finger twitched on the trigger, but Nathan, blood streaking down his face, surged to his feet. He planted himself between the snake and the officer, his body a shield. "Stand down," he roared, eyes blazing with unshakable fire. "It fought for its life. We did the same. Now it deserves to leave alive." The officer froze, his jaw tight, torn between protocol and the raw authority in Nathan's voice. Slowly, reluctantly, the weapon lowered. The crowd parted as the snake, hissing, began to retreat into the shadows of the trees. Its body rippled through the grass like a dark river, disappearing into the park's undergrowth. Children clung tighter to their parents, awe replacing fear. Silence lingered as the serpent vanished, leaving only the sound of ragged breathing, sobs, and the hum of cicadas reclaiming the park. Nathan stood unmoving, chest heaving, until the last glimpse of scales was gone. Only then did he turn back, his gaze softening at the sight of Emily cradling Shadow, the dog's chest now rising steadily. The handler crawled forward, trembling, reaching out as if afraid the touch might break the fragile moment. Emily smiled faintly through her tears and let Shadow's head rest into his partner's lap. The dog opened his eyes, cloudy but alive, and let out a weak whine that melted the tension into raw emotion. The handler whispered, voice breaking, "You came back to me." He pressed his forehead to Shadow's, tears soaking the fur. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of relief and reverence, phones forgotten as human hearts connected to the miracle before them. Nathan wiped blood and sweat from his face, his eyes softening as he stepped closer. He crouched beside the handler and extended one gloved hand toward Shadow. For a breathless second, the canine seemed unsure, his paw twitching. Then, with trembling strength, Shadow lifted his paw and placed it against Nathan's hand. A quiet murmur spread through the crowd, some weeping openly. That small gesture, fragile, deliberate, spoke louder than any cheer. Gratitude, trust, and the unbreakable bond forged in survival. Carla, Marcus, and Emily gathered around, their uniforms streaked, faces exhausted, yet glowing with quiet pride. They didn't cheer, didn't pose. They simply stood, sharing a silence heavy with meaning. The park, moments ago a stage of terror, now hummed with the warmth of life saved and life spared. Nathan rose slowly, meeting the eyes of the officers, of the crowd, and finally of the handler still clutching his partner. His voice was quiet, but it carried, "Today 2 lives walked away. That's what matters." As the sun dipped lower, Painting the trees in gold, Shadow nuzzled into his handler's chest, tail giving the faintest wag. It was enough, a signal of survival, a symbol of hope. The team exchanged glances, weary but fulfilled. In the background, the city continued to breathe, unaware of the battle just won in its heart. But for those who stood there, that moment, the paw against Nathan's glove, the handler's tears, the serpent spared, was a story they would never forget.